Hello and welcome to another episode of Rico's Rants. I'm your host, Rico DiGiorgio. So today, to go with the theme of what I've been doing, I'm doing another Batman movie. I'm doing Batman Returns because I did Batman last video. And to prepare, I'm wearing a Batman shirt, motherfucker. Let's do this! Batman Returns is probably one of my favorite Batman movies, but it doesn't hold up anymore. I rewatched it. It really doesn't hold up. Not as well as you think. A lot of things are different. Darker, more gothic, kind of gross. And if you thought Tim Burton's Batman was dark and gothic and gross, this one just says, oh, okay, fuck you, I'm going to do another one and make it more dark and gothic and gross. Like, I think McDonald's couldn't, do kids meals and toys and shit because this was so too advanced. I mean, the Penguin is a fucking lech. He's basically a pervert, and his whole thing is to try and get pussy. It's really, really kind of disturbing to watch it as an adult, and then you realize I watched this when I was a kid. But you know what? It's fine. Most kids nowadays have seen a whole lot worse. So, that being said, Tim Burton comes back and directs, and he does the reoccurring Tim Burton thing, which is he makes a very dark, gothic film set around Christmas. That's sort of his staple. It's sort of what he does. And it works. It works for this film, and Michael Keaton comes back. Michael Keaton, like I said in my last video, is definitely up there with the better Batmans. You know, he does a good job. He's weird. He's got the darkness. He's got the moodiness. He's got, like I said in my last video, Batman is an insane guy. Batman could have just as easily been his own fucking worst villain. He's a guy who dresses up like a bat after witnessing his parents get murdered in front of him, and then he punches people in night that look like clowns or penguins or riddlers and whatnot. Total fucking nutcase. So, Michael Keaton still harbors that insane look. He sort of tones it down a little bit in this one, because in the first one he's like, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Nah. This one he doesn't do it that much. This one everyone else is more crazy than him, which is amazing to acknowledge. So let's talk about the villains. Dan DeVito plays the Penguin, which, if you just think about it, makes perfect fucking sense. And he's scary in it, and he's a pervert, and he's gross. And at first, when you watch it, you're very sympathetic, because in the beginning of the film, he's born, weird looking. He has flippers for hands, and they're sort of like this, and he's got a beak nose, and he looks like a penguin. What are the odds that he would look like a penguin and be called Penguin, right? But his name is Oswald Cobblepot. Oswald Chesterfield Cobblepot, if you really know the character's name. Born of a super wealthy, affluent family in Gotham, not unlike the Waynes. I mean, he is basically, if the Waynes had a disfigured kid, it'd be this guy. But I'm sure the Waynes would actually raise this kid right. Not what the Cobblepots did. The Cobblepots, not knowing what to do with their deformed son, fucking keep him trapped up in a steel crib cage thing and throw him in a fucking river. And that's the movie starts. Is, at first you're like, oh, that's fucked up. Could you have just sent him out for adoption? Maybe try to raise him? But no, they couldn't handle an embarrassment, a deformed kid, as their heir and the face of the Cobblepot, money and whatnot. So they just fucking try and drown his ass. Which, that's how the movie starts, and the camera follows the carriage in the river, and him squawking like a penguin. And then it ends with him like getting up to a riverbank, or it's in the sewers at this point, and he gets up to where like like a bunch of penguins essentially greet him, which is cool. It's symbolic, but at the same time, who the fuck opened the steel cage? The penguins couldn't do it. They couldn't chomp through that shit. They say he was raised by a circus troupe, so unless the circus troupe is right there, you'd have to assume that he is like in this cage for maybe a couple of weeks, and he's a baby. He needs milk. So what are they gonna do? The penguins are just gonna fucking throw fish at him through the cage, and him just chomping on that to get nourishment? He would have died. He would have died. Like he didn't. Look, I can't nitpick a fucking movie where the villain's called a penguin. So, but it's just like, I would have liked to have seen like a circus troupe open up the cage for him. Something. Or at least talk about it. At least mention that he was discovered. Because the only clue you get is like a news sort of like clip. Like, an article in a newspaper that's really quick, and you're just like, oh, Birdman raised by circus troupe. Fine. Second villain, and I think this was like one of the first movies, apart from like Batman 66, which I won't talk about, where they did the whole two villains. But this is like, it has three villains too. So this was sort of the beginning of, let's add more villains. Let's have him deal with one, and then have to deal with two. Now it's three. They did that with, Batman and Robin and Batman Forever, Batman Begins, Dark Knight, like so on and so forth. Like, there's always more than one villain. Although I guess in the Dark Knight, he really only has one villain to go up against, which is weird. Although at the beginning he does fight Scarecrow. Well, that's really a cameo at best. So, Catwoman is the other villain, and played really well by Michelle Pfeiffer. Like, to me, Anne Hathaway wasn't a great Catwoman. Halle Berry was a dreadful Catwoman. Michelle Pfeiffer is a great Catwoman. She's sexy. She is insane. I mean, despite the fact that Tim Burton doesn't know shit about comic books, he knows insanity pretty well, and he knows how to make any character insane. You'd have to assume the majority of Batman's villains, and Batman himself, they're off the spectrum just a little bit. They're close to being insane, or they are insane, and a lot of them deal with dualities, and that's a reoccurring thing in all the Batman movies, especially if they have identities and secret identities, like Bruce Wayne and Batman, or Penguin is the Penguin, and he's also Oswald Cobblepot, and he tries to embrace that, that name and that figure. Catwoman is Selina Kyle, as well as Catwoman, and in the beginning of the film, she's a secretary or assistant to Christopher Walken. Yeah, Christopher Walken's in this, and it's really bizarre. And his character's name is Max Schreck, and that's a made-up character for this film, never in the comics. Go on, just jump. I know you're going to jump. Thank you. And his name is from the old actor Max Schreck, who played the vampire Nosferatu, the original. So, I don't know, weird kind of homage, because he doesn't look like a vampire. I mean, all Tim Burton characters in some ways look like vampires, all pale and dark-haired and bags under their eyes and crazy, fucked up, kooky hair. Kind of like how Tim Burton looks. I think Tim Burton just says, everyone needs to look like me or Helena Bonham Carter. They just all happen to be played by Johnny Depp. Next movie, he's going to make a movie about Helena Bonham Carter that's going to be played by Johnny Depp. I predict it. And that's just for Tim Burton's own amusement. He's just going to watch that and be like, oh yeah, this is art. So, Is Catwoman perfect in this? No. Is Michelle Pfeiffer's perfect acting perfect in this? No. Because a couple times she comes off really cheesy. She has this one line called "Life's a bitch, so am I." I mean, it's just her delivery is kind of what? But the costume was really fucking. It's skin tight. It's stitches. She acts like a cat, but not like overly Halle Berry-ish, like which is like cat-ish, I guess. But she like is flirting and licks her, is like, I'm gonna take a bath, and just like does this shit and licks her, and like, ooh. I think every boy watching this, and maybe some girls watching this when they were a kid, were like, I'm in puberty now. That just woke up my fucking puberty state. Whoa, there it is. And not a bad thing. It's a bad thing. So, this movie is just so much more gothic and dark than the first one. The first one was really dark and gothic. You thought Tim Burton was done? Fuck no, he wasn't done. And the characters themselves, like, Batman tried to kill the Joker in the first one, and he killed a couple people, and that's really against the Batman mythos, which is why everyone was giving Batfleck a lot of shit in Batman v Superman, like, oh, he killed people. Batman kills a lot of people. He doesn't want to, but if he has to, he will. Which is why people are always like, why the fuck didn't he just kill the Joker? Because he doesn't really want to. If he has to, he will. So in this one, at one point, Penguin's circus troupe starts wrecking fucking havoc in Gotham, and there's a big the strong man of the circus troupe, like, goes up against Batman, and Batman fucking straps a goddamn bomb to his chest, a ticking dynamite bomb, punches him, he falls down a fucking, like, hole in the ground, and explodes. Batman killed people, and Batman's like grinning, like, you're fucked. Like, he's dark, man. This is a dark Batman. And so, spoiler alert again. I mean, I don't know if I said it in this video, but all my videos are usually going to have spoilers, so you should just accept that at this point. Christopher Walken is like a corrupt businessman, and he gets caught by Selena Kyle, his assistant, throws her out the goddamn window, and she's sort of like, I never understood this, if the cats were trying to wake her up, or if they're eating her, because they're all these stray alley cats that were probably hungry as shit, and they start biting her fingers, and like, running across her, and jumping on her and shit, and yowling, and then she, like, wakes up, and is completely fucking, like, broken and insane, goes back to her place, lonely, like, very pink apartment, and, like, neon lights and shit, and, like, dollhouses and a lot of stuffed animals, and she just goes fucking berserk, makes her transformation into becoming Catwoman. But like I said, I didn't know if these cats were just trying to eat her, and she happened to wake up and she's, like, even more insane, or if, like, the cats woke her up and, like, they're trying to save her. Really kind of, there's a lot of things that are just kind of like, what? So, she's Catwoman now, somehow knows how to fucking do a bunch of gymnastics and flip around, and, unless she took gymnastics when she was a kid, or as an adult, the likelihood of her being an expert is really minimal. So like I said, I try not to nitpick about this shit too much, because it's a comic book movie and it's Batman, and you kind of have to, like, throw logic out the window sometimes, to a certain degree. But it's clear that Tim Burton is not a fucking fan. He doesn't really know the characters very well. Like, he made the Penguin just a straight up pervert. And there's a line that he delivers, like, we gotta fill the void. I like to fill her void. Like, I remember being a kid being like, I think I know what that means. What is that? What's going on here? And he, like, says, here, wear a button. And he puts the button on the woman's boob and just, like, caressing it. Like, like, fuck, dude. No wonder McDonald's was like, we can't make toys for this. And that being said, it's all this movie, just like with the first one, and just like every Batman movie, is all about identity. Who is Selina Kyle? Is she Catwoman or Selina Kyle? Who is Penguin? Is he Oswald Cobblepot or is he the Penguin? Who's Bruce Wayne? Is he Batman or Bruce Wayne? It's all about masks. And there's this really interesting scenario where Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle fall in love, but at night, Batman and Catwoman kick the shit out of each other, and they don't know they're still attracted to each other as Batman and Catwoman. And then they sort of realize who the other person is in the middle of at a ball, at a masked ball, with the whole thing is just masks. And if you notice, both of them are not wearing masks, which is ironic because that's their identities. That's their cover-ups. They're Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle. Those are their masks. So it's symbolic. And they're dancing together, and then she says something, and he says something that Batman and Catwoman had said to each other, and they both realize who they are, sort of like get closer and like, all right, let's. And she's like, oh my god, does this mean we have to start fighting? Which is a great line because it's like, what do they do now? Like, do they go out and talk? I would love to have seen a scene like that where they just go outside, sit down together, and be like, what do we do now? It was a missed opportunity. They totally could have made an interesting scene, being like, well, I clearly am Batman, you're clearly Catwoman. He would be like, I have to stop you. I don't want to. I love you. Let's stop this. And she'd be like, you can't save me, Bruce, blah, blah, blah. It would have been interesting to see, and they missed out. Should I ruin the movie? No, I'm not going to ruin the movie, because if you haven't seen Batman Returns, you should see Batman Returns. It doesn't hold up, and there's a lot of, what moments? There is one scene where, Batman does this very Batman Bruce Wayne thing, where he's in a sort of, he's in the Batmobile, and he's, going in a tunnel. And there's penguins, not the penguin, just a bunch of penguins with rockets strapped to their backs. And they're gonna blow up Gotham and shit. And he goes past them and he does this, just looks in the river mirror a quick second, and the look on his face was just I just fucking saw a bunch of penguins with rockets strapped to their back. And he's like, I live in a fucked up world. This is what I have to deal with whenever I put on the mask and the cowl and everything. I have to deal with crazy bullshit like this. So for nostalgic reasons, I give it a 5 because I love this movie and I loved this movie. I have a big giant poster of it. I could have chosen the regular Batman or the Dark Knight, but this was oh man, I remember being a kid looking at the cover and obsessing over how weird it was and how dark it was and how scary it looked. Totally was into it. So I have that poster, and I have the movie, and I love this movie. I mean, I would rank it certainly in the top Batman movies. And at the end of all these Batman reviews, I'll rank them. Once I get done with Batman v Superman, I will rank all the Batman films. Is it better than 89 Batman? No. Because Jack Nicholson is great as the Joker, and he steals the scenery, and he's great as the Joker. But this is just, for some reason, I always enjoyed a little bit more because it's scarier. It's more gothic and terrifying. And yeah, so as a film, it's a 3. It's a 3.5. We'll call it a 3.5. Because there's a lot of things that don't work, and there's a lot of things where you're just Tim Burton, just need to fucking read a comic book and figure this shit out. But Michael Keaton still does a great job. Penguin is perfect, played by Danny DeVito. No one else really could do a convincing job. I would have liked to have seen maybe Philip Seymour Hoffman, or Bob Hoskins would have been a really good job, but they're both dead. So your short, fat guys as the Penguins are pretty limited. But I'm available, Warner Brothers. I'll be the Penguin. So I guess that's the end of this video. Tell me if you like Batman Returns. What's your favorite Batman movie? What's your favorite memory of watching Batman Returns? If you were like me and watched it when you were a kid, does it still hold up to you? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe and share and like. And love you all to death. Bye, guys.